Now, Brent Miller is considered an expert in e-commerce systems, and he has spent several times developing patents and is now working with the Horizon Project research team. Many top researchers, scientists to unlock the greatest mysteries of our world. Brent was on with me almost a year ago, Brent, wasn't it?
Almost 2 years ago, yeah.
Oh, my God, it's right, 2 years.
Flies.
How quickly it flies. How have you been?
Oh, very good. I appreciate being back on again, and we have new material to show. And the evidence that we presented last time, I'm not going to cover as much of that because there is much more evidence. We actually are getting more evidence to show that what we did believe was coming right around the corner absolutely is coming.
Oh, here we go.
are rechanging our focus. We're focusing on looking into these prophecies because what we have discovered is that the correlation between the prophecies and the science, we just cannot ignore the statistically improbable connection between the two. So we have just recently returned from the Middle East, where we had a film crew, where we are reviewing some of the world's most ancient documents in order to uncover what the ancients say is going to happen. And we have a striking number of similarities between the model that we have created and these ancient texts that say what is the sequence of events that will happen. In fact, it is so uncanny you could practically lay them beside each other. Ours is a lot more detailed of what will happen to the Earth and solar system as it moves through the galactic plane. But basically, all the key points are identical. One of the last things as we move through the solar system is what you just referred to as wormwood. One of the texts, Revelations, describes a huge meteorite, one of the last events, which would hit the planet, and its name would be wormwood. Shortly after that event, we see that let me step back and show you a brief example of the model. What the Mayans did is they computed very precisely the moment in time that we will hit the center. Our solar system will move down and rest on that galactic plane before it moves through. It refers to this era as one of a devastating era that will happen. In fact, they have many, many legends with regard to these specific events that will happen. One of the most bizarre legends is, and forgive me if I don't have the actual text in front of me at the moment.
All right, you can just
paraphrase. I'll paraphrase.
Sure.
When the four corners of the Earth rest on the dark rift, a cosmic sky portal will be opened up, and basically, in essence, souls will be harvested. It's one of the most interesting and bizarre.
It's profound.
It is, because it actually, some people, if you believe in prophecy, if you're one that believes in prophecy, you might relate that to the rapture of sorts. But if you talk to astrophysicists and quantum physicists, they will say that if the gravitational wave emanating from the black hole is intense enough, there may be a layer intense enough where there may be a very, very slight dimensional rift where people actually move through dimensionally as the Earth passes through. So where the Mayans get these legends, we do not know. We have no science on that, but we do see science that might point to some sort of logic to where the legend comes from, such as we know that when we pass through a black hole, Einstein showed that you do have a dimensional kind of shift. But when they say the four corners of the Earth resting on the dark rift and a cosmic sky portal opens up, it's a little bit too eerie. So we don't know what to make of that. They have other legends, of course, but we do know from astrophysics, and our models are very, very accurate, that they computed a couple thousand years ago, within 24 hours, the precise date at which this event will occur, which will be around December 21st, 2012. Not to say that the pole shift will happen before on that date. It could happen a year before that or a year after. That's just the point at which we sit on the middle.
Even if it occurs around that time period or even close, I think that's pretty astounding, don't you?
It is amazing. And in fact, there are more prophecies that science can't begin to explain. For example, there are prophecies that relate to social upheaval and unrest which precede this event. Well, this has nothing to do with science. How could any prophecy understand what our social structure would be like and what we would be going through? In fact, the prophecies up to this event suggest that right before the event happens, we would enter a period of what appears to be a global depression, a global economic depression, if not collapse. Now, we're starting to see the formation of this right now on a social level. In fact, the concept of an global economic collapse was unthinkable a year ago. And now everybody's talking about it as if we're one giant country. And it does look like we are having serious financial problems worldwide, and it's escalating. So I don't know, I call that coincidence. I guess you'll have to decide for yourself about that.
Of course, as you know, Brent, I don't believe in coincidences.
I don't either. Yeah. I don't. But how they knew, the source of their information, is beyond science. That's all I can tell you about that. But in terms of prophecy, the prophecy is just uncanny when we look at various documents that span literally thousands of years back. For instance, the sequence of events as the Earth then moves, our model that we made years ago before we started looking into prophecy. This event occurs, which all the evidence does show that it will occur within the next few years. The prophecies show that the sequence of events that are prophesied do match the models, the scientific models, the best scientific models today that we have of what is happening and is confirmed to be happening as we're moving through the galactic plane. We do expect the absolute worst scenario to happen, that there will be another pole shift. There'll be a massive loss of life, just as the prophecies indicate as well, and that some continents will reshape. We have well over 10,000 different documents that refer to different prophets. I indicated that not all world catastrophic events result in a pole shift. Well, I don't believe you're aware, maybe you are, but I don't believe most people are aware that just a few thousand years ago, at 705 BC, a major worldwide catastrophic event occurred. It actually shifted the entire planet, but it was not a pole shift. In fact, during that time, King Hezekiah reigned, and the sun moved backward in the sky. It did not set. It simply, the planet stopped revolving in its current direction, and it moved backward about 10 hours worth, almost half of a revolution. And then whatever gravitational wave or passing space body affected it, it released it, and then it continued to move forward in the same direction. At that very same time, 705 BC, according to our current calendar, the ancient Chinese, who were great astronomers, they recorded that the sun set twice in the same day. It set, it rose back up from the west, and it set again. Now,
that sounds like we were doing the moving.
Right. Now, during that time, before that time, we have discovered, it is very well documented over hundreds of years. There are historically 15 ancient calendars that were discovered before that time, that existed before 705 BC. 15 ancient calendars. Every one of those calendars has 360-day years. Every calendar is based on a 360-day year. After that event, every calendar for the next 5 years, all around the planet, all the civilizations changed their calendars. The Assyrians, the Chaldeans, the Egyptians, the Hebrews, the Persians, the Greeks, the Chinese, the Mayans, the Hindus. There's every civilization that existed during that time over the next 5 years readjusted their calendars to 365-day years. The prophecies that you're talking about, the one that specifically mentions wormwood, it mentions that after it talks about a series of events, starting with a pole shift of no less. The exact wording would be similar to the sky recedes as a scroll when it's rolled up, and every mountain and island is moved off of its foundation. Well, if you look at the planet and use terminology that you don't have scientific terminology back then, but if you use whatever terminology you have and you say that every mountain on the planet and every island on the planet is moved off of its foundation, that certainly sounds like a pole shift to me.
Absolutely.
What we expect in our model is exactly what the prophecies then indicate. Now that your atmosphere is stripped, I mean, it just said it rolled away like a scroll. You are at risk to incredible solar radiation or CME blasts. And what is the next prophecy in this series of things? You have literally, if I can, let me find. What I would like to do is I would like to find a phrase that describes that particular event. Here it is. Let me read to you a phrase from one of the prophecies that you're referring to, and explain it. And hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth, and a third of the trees were burnt up.
Good my.
Okay, now remember, they don't have scientific terms. If you rip apart the atmosphere of Earth with a pole shift, you are now exposing the upper atmosphere. If a CME blast from the sun, coronal mass ejection, now makes it to the Earth because its magnetosphere has been altered. In other words, our quote, what is protecting the Earth is now down. We are easily susceptible to the solar winds. In other words, the CME from the sun. That is the fire. Also, as it approaches the upper atmosphere, the 270 degrees minus Celsius temperature of the outside frigid space now touches the upper atmosphere, which is basically water vapor. It would suddenly turn to ice crystals instantly. There's your ice. The hail, which is ice, and fire, the CME, are mixed together and mingled with blood. You're looking at a sequence. It is now moving toward the Earth. What is instantly vaporized? These 43,000 airplanes that are flying at any given moment, and all the people aboard, plus all the flying birds and animals in the air.
Gone.
So in other words, there's your mingled with blood. And then it continues. What does it do? It continues to make it to the deck. And they are thrown to the earth, and a third of the trees are burnt up. In other words, this is a great sequence of events to describe a simple CME blast that literally fries a third of the planet.
But the fact they were able to predict this is scary.
So prophecy is absolutely amazing, but what is more amazing to us is we created a scientific model, a very precise scientific model, and we see that these prophecies model very precisely what we feel this model would present.
Let's talk about this horizon model when we come back at the top of the hour, but let's end this very quickly with the Hopi Indians, Brent, if you would. Again, very similar in prophecy to Nostradamus, Casey, and the Mayans.
Very similar. In fact, the Hopi and the Aztecs had very similar prophecies. In fact, they were almost identical, their calendar systems, and they related a number of earthquakes that would happen before the end. They also said that a period of 7 years, they called it a time of purification, what other religious texts would say called the tribulation would occur. In fact, we may be in that right now. And so the Hopi Indians referred to this, breaking away where there would be wars and there would be pestilence and there would be famine and disease. And so it looks like, based on their description, especially when they mingled it with the massive increase in intensity of earthquakes, which we are now seeing, it looks like this has already started.
And what's so amazing, countless ancient scrolls all over the planet, scrolls discovered, talk about things like this.
And what is interesting about legends in these scrolls is they don't contradict each other. See, in our world,
no, they're all
today,
similar, aren't they?
Oh, they're all very similar, and that is when you have to sit up and take notice. Because today, everything's everybody's opinion. But back then, it wasn't opinion. It wasn't written down unless they felt it was accurate. And so, for the vast majority of these predictions, they all agree with each other. A number of times they come from different perspectives, but because they agree with each other, you have to take notice and wonder how all of these predictions from different civilizations, different languages, different different spans of time, thousands of years apart from each other, how they could all come up with the same thing.
Brent, when we come back, let's talk about the Horizon Project model on how this is going to occur, and then we'll take phone calls with you next on Coast to Coast AM.